Good news, college football fans. After decades and decades of college football's national champions being decided by media and coaching polls or shoddy combinations of polls and murky, evil computer formulas, college football finally has a playoff. Huzzah, right? Well, mostly. The great news is that with the new semifinal and championship system, we're infinitely closer to having a national champion who earns their hardware with what they can prove on the field, rather than having enormous games determined by an uneven and at times corrupt bowl exhibition system. So 4 teams get in, but how? Well, thanks to the newly appointed College Football Playoff Selection Committee, a group of 12 people comprised of 6 current or former school athletic directors, a professor, a former media member, a former coach, a former superintendent of a service academy, a former NCAA executive, and a former conference commissioner. 4 teams will eventually be singled out as worthy entrants into January's playoff. How will they decide who gets in? Well, starting in the middle of the season, the committee convenes and releases a top 25, much in the way media members or coaches do each week, partially to give insight into the process, but mostly so fans can yell at each other for no real reason. And then, after conference championship weekend in early December, they'll finalize which 4 teams will punch their tickets. Additionally, you might be asking yourself how a group of people, a majority of whom either are or have long been on the payroll of schools and conferences, can be trusted to provide a fair evaluation of football teams when they, their friends, their coworkers, and their bosses stand to gain financially from entry into said playoff. The rule, at least for now, is that each member with a superficial, at least, conflict of interest must recuse him or herself by leaving the room when their associated team is brought up during meetings. Well, okay then. Are there concerns about how they'll separate teams with nearly identical resumes from different conferences playing different teams? You betcha! They'll differentiate those teams with similar or identical records by using straightforward metrics like championships won, or an odd interpretation of strength of schedule and head-to-head results. Little odd, right? Well, it's to be expected. Here's the reality. The playoff is an experiment that'll have a flawed beginning, it'll evolve, it'll change shape, and should ultimately mean the same thing every year. More excellent football, which, huzzah!